There is a lot of hype around OLED gaming monitors, so I went and picked this up, the 27-inch Xeneon OLED from Corsair. I'll be real, it's one of the best displays I've ever used. However, it's also far from perfect. In this video, I'd like to discuss some of the pros and cons that stood out to me regarding using an OLED as my computer monitor and whether or not the hype is warranted. Seasoned viewers of the channel already know how much I love OLEDs. A few months ago, I made a video on this, the LG 42-inch C2 OLED TV, and I've been using it as my primary computer monitor for gaming and productivity. It's 4K, 120Hz, and has amazing contrast and color, all for as low as $850 on a good day, making this one of the best bang for buck displays that you can get for your desk. That is, if you can fit it. Plenty of you that watched the video expressed in the comments that despite the upsides, a 42-inch TV is simply too big for a desk, even if the footprint of the C2 can actually be smaller than that of a dual monitor setup. But it got me thinking, what would using a smaller OLED monitor be like? Before we get into the juicy details about this monitor, it's tough discussing OLEDs and PCs without addressing a major concern people have. Burn-in. To put simply, while I can't promise that it won't happen to you, in reality, it's never been an issue for me, even for my first OLED, the 48-inch LG C10, which I've used for almost 3 years as my main PC gaming monitor at home. It's not to say that burn-in won't happen ever, but even the slightest bit of precaution, like enabling timed screensavers or running lower brightnesses whenever possible, can go a long way to preserving the life of your panel. Despite this, one reason why I specifically chose the Corsair Xeneon as my guinea pig for this OLED adventure is because of the warranty. The company covers you for up to 3 years against dead pixels and burn-in, which is on par with Alienware's commitment towards its popular QD OLED ultra-wide monitor, and even bests what you get from LG, who mind you also supply the same 27-inch OLED panel not just to Corsair, but to ASUS as well with one of their ROG products. This coverage is absolutely welcome, so with durability out of the way, why exactly would people want an OLED monitor? On pure aesthetics, our Xeneon OLED looks amazing on the desk. There's no RGB lighting, no ugly logos, funky colors, or weird angles. Just a sleek-looking monitor with a very simple stand, just the way I like it. We're actually in the process of redoing the Denki gaming setup right now, so if you're curious about what we're cooking, stay tuned onto the channel. We've got a video coming very soon. The ergonomics of the Xeneon are also just as good as the looks. Like many other monitors these days, the stand gives you easy height adjustment as well as tilt, and will even give you clearance to rotate it 90 degrees if that's your thing. But probably my favorite quality of life design thing is that the ports are rear facing as opposed to being on the bottom. This makes plugging in cables relatively easy, especially if you find yourself manually swapping input devices often. And on that note, the port selection is also quite nice. You get 2 HDMI 2.1 ports, DisplayPort 1.4, DP USB-C that'll also deliver power at up to 65 watts if you plan on hooking up this bad boy to your laptop, and also a handful of USB 3.1 ports to use this monitor as a hub for convenience and to also help with cable management on your desk. Something I want to emphasize is that this monitor does take advantage of HDMI 2.1, which means it has full compatibility with modern gaming hardware and will take in a 4K 120Hz signal even if this monitor is not 4K. Yep, you heard that right. This is actually a 1440p display, which admittedly doesn't look the best for things with fine lines, such as text. In fact, it can look a bit blurry and might even look lower than 1440p in those cases, so it might not be the best for productivity. However, the trade-off in resolution is absolutely worth it when it comes to gaming and watching content, where pixel density quality isn't necessarily the be-all end-all, because the overall picture quality on the Xeneon monitor is absolutely amazing. Thanks to per-pixel dimming, nothing can beat the contrast and color you get from these panels. I'll say it every time we make a video about OLEDs, but the inky blacks are a huge reason why I go out of my way to integrate them into my setup. I spend a lot of time consuming content, and that's an area where these panels absolutely excel. Additionally, this is a matte display, which I know might be a point of contention for some people, but I personally prefer it, especially to keep glare down to a minimum, which is something that I definitely have issues with on my LG OLED TVs. Then, on top of all of this, the fact that this panel can hit a 240 Hz refresh rate on PC makes this a dream to use for gaming. Sure, the panel brings the best out of beautiful environments in games like Forza Horizon 5 or Cyberpunk 2077. Wow, that's really soon. That's tomorrow. Cyberpunk 2077, where you have a lot of color, intricate lighting, and contrast. But I've been especially enjoying this monitor with more competitive titles like Valorant. Initially, I was a bit skeptical at 240 Hz and assumed at this point that there would be diminishing returns in refresh rate. But I'm actually able to see and feel the difference in motion response times compared to 120 or 144 Hz displays that I've used. Whether or not it'll actually make you a better gamer, however, is of course another story.
Definitely did it with you.
As I mentioned throughout the video, while I love this Xeneon OLED, it's hardly the perfect monitor. And the first glaring downside is that it doesn't get very bright. It's fine in normal room lighting with ceiling lights or in the day with the shades down, but in brightly lit rooms, it might present a bit of an issue. Additionally, just like other OLEDs on the market, this panel has ABL, or auto static brightness limiting. The idea here is that it'll gradually dim down the screen if no motion is detected to help preserve the life of the OLED and reduce the chance of burn-in, which can be annoying during surprisingly static tasks, like typing up documents or reading articles. It's hard to capture it with the Xeneon on camera, but we actually saw a more aggressive version of it on my LG C2 OLED while working on that video a few months ago. It was in fact so apparent that I bought a service remote to access the back-end software to turn it off on that TV. Thankfully, there is a mode in this monitor's settings called Brightness Stabilizer that effectively does the same thing, though where on the LG TV it's more of a hack, this one is actually safer for the panel. And that's because it effectively runs the display at a lower peak brightness at around 150 nits. Now, if that sounds very dim to you, that's because it is, even in a dark room. Personally, I just leave the stabilizer off since I never notice the dimming with how slow the effect takes to activate, and in video games, it rarely activates to begin with. However, if you just want a brighter OLED gaming monitor, I've heard that Alienware's QD OLED Ultrawide gets you on average about 100 more nits of brightness, which can make all of the difference in the world for some people. For me, what is a bit more annoying with the Xeneon OLED is that it comes with a hefty price tag. At retail, it goes for about $1,000 US, which is a lot for a 1440p monitor, no matter how much you spin it. Granted, I was able to find the Xeneon and even its LG Ultra Gear counterpart on discount for around $800, but there are a plethora of alternative options if you want to save extra money or want more features. For example, I've already mentioned my C2 42-inch LG TV as being one of the best low-key values if you're looking for an OLED. Not only is that a decent computer monitor, but it'll also handle HDR for your PC or game consoles better than this monitor. However, if that isn't important to you, you can get high refresh rate 1440p and 4K VA or IPS panels for a few hundred less than that. That being said, OLED is still an emerging segment in gaming monitors, and it seems like we're on the cusp of seeing more options, upgraded features, and better pricing in the next year or so. Which at that point, it might be worth your while to just hold out if you're considering going this route. Let me know if you'd buy an OLED gaming monitor in the comments below, and stay tuned again for our brand new gaming setup coming soon to the channel.